where the left hemisphere of her brain began to shut down. And she observed what happened, and she was able to remember later what happened and document it in a book called My Stroke of Insight. And in there, she very simply describes the human mind in left brain and right brain terms, which is not that simple, but, for ease of understanding, which I'm all about, that really made me happy to understand that in the left brain is where the functions live, like what day it is, what side of the road to drive on, where you live, and all of that stuff. It's also where our ego lives. And the ego is all about being right. It loves to feel special, and it wants to be miserable. So it's always looking for fuel for those things. So if we're operating from that level, we're always hungry because the ego is always looking for new fuel. If we're looking for our happiness that way, we will never, ever find it. When you understand this law of attraction, you get that this is what it states simply. What you think about and focus your attention on is what's going to grow and expand in your life. So if we're always focusing on what's wrong, as I was when I was younger, because I didn't know any other way, I attracted more of that. Now my life is all about focusing on what works and what's right. Yes, there are things that are wrong. Yes, there are things that pop up. It's what am I going to do about that makes the difference. So understanding law of attraction is operating all the time, whether we like it or not, believe in it or not, care about it or not. It is a fact. And so I wanted to understand more about this law of attraction. So I read a book called The Law of Attraction by Michael Lozier, a Canadian author. Then he came to Ottawa to speak to small business owners, and my husband and I went. And that night he said this. He said, we humans are really good at coming up with a list of things we want, right? We know what we want, more or less, but we're not always available to receive it. And I wanted to understand why that is for me, and then to help others understand why they are not getting what they really want. Well, Tick, what I discovered is part of the challenge is we don't really know what we want. We think with our thinking mind, as Dr. Taylor calls that left brain function, has this inner voice, right, that you hear all the time about, you're not enough, this is boring, can we do something else? Who do you think you are? You can't do that. It's that negative, critical voice that we all have. It's not our fault. We're not alone. We're wired this way.
I don't have it. I'm just kidding.
Right, you're just kidding.
Well, no, I don't have it quite the way you describe it, but go on.
But you have something related to it?
Well, I mean, I won't say there's voices in my head, but
well, we all have that inner.
Well, I do critical thinking. I think small. I think extremely small, and I think extremely large. Where I think most of the people think here now. What's now?
What they say about the thinking mind is that it is a loyal servant. When we know what we want, that servant will do exactly what we tell it to do. When we don't know what we want, the thinking mind runs our lives. This is why those people who love Donald Trump are in the situation they're in, because they believe that voice. That voice is like rudimentary garbage. It's not about critical thinking. When we use critical thinking, we get the bigger picture. We understand what is the reality of what's going on here and where do I choose to focus my attention? Because our thoughts, Tick, are the only thing we have control over. We have no control over life's events. I can't decide whether you're going to make it home safely today, same as you can't me. But I'm in charge of what I'm going to do with what happens when that happens. So this is my definition of happiness. When that yippity thing in my head is not running my life and I'm in charge of my thoughts, that's happiness.
And that poses a problem. How do you get control of your thoughts? Because sometimes you might wake up saying, you know what? It's the birds are singing, the sun is shining, the flowers are growing. It's a beautiful day. You go outside, you're in a good mood, and then something happens that feels like getting hit in the face with a baseball bat. So you start off the day with good intentions, good thoughts. Something negative happens, and then you fall into a depressive state, which means a lot of things, which means you don't fulfill that day of happiness or you're just miserable for the rest of the day.
But I think your concept of happiness is different from mine, because what you're talking about is like pop psychology. Everything's happy all the time. That's not reality. Shit happens.
Absolutely.
Okay, but you cannot, no matter what happens in my life, you cannot take away that decision I've made on the inside of me to focus on what's important. So what's important to me is being grateful. And I see life's events, the things that happen to me, and weird things happen to me too, as opportunities to learn something. So instead of me being a victim of my life, which most people think they are, oh my God, this thing happened. This person did that. They went way over the line. They're wrong, blah, 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 blah. I've heard it all. That's your choice. If you want to be a victim and you're making a living at it, have at it. It's not my choice. Nobody and nothing can take away the choice that I've made to focus on what's important to me. So being grateful for everything, and I mean everything, is a big challenge for our thinking mind, because it wants to be in that place of, well, that negative thing happened, so it's got to turn your day around. Why? That's your choice. Mm-hmm. Every thought you have is your choice. And you can choose a stream of them that are going to take you into a miserable place, or you can choose a stream of them that are going to keep you in a good place.
This way of thinking, though, applies to people that are, how shall I use the term, reasonably well balanced. Like if we're in a depressive state,
highly functioning people.
This is not going to work.
The mental illness is a reality. This is one of the reasons I am so candid in my book. I want people to feel comfortable about admitting their vulnerabilities, about admitting they don't feel good, because we need to get support. We need to get help. This is not the way we need to live our lives. It's a choice. We can either choose to get help or we can choose not to, and we can continue on that road.
Why do people wear a mask? You know, that's what I often say.
Because they're afraid of being judged.
But
because
how,
our
how do they get
society's set
taught?
up that
How
way.
do they get taught that way? Is that a society thing? Because I've always been very honest and open, sometimes way too much, and I've learned a bit about trust, the hard way. I'm still very honest and open, so I've never put on a mask, and I have a problem with people who put on a mask.
Yeah, but then that's your judgment of people who are just doing their best. Look,
to get through the day.
To get through, they learn. We all learn ideas and conditioned thoughts when we're kids, making our way through the world. Learn behaviors. You know, my mother, when I was a little girl, told me I had a face only a mother could love, and I believed her. I was 4, 5, 6, 8, 10. You have a face only a mother could love. Now, when you plant that idea in a person's brain, they believe you, and they conduct themselves accordingly, right? So somebody else says, you can't tell. The other thing was, you have home secrets and public secrets. So there are things my family discussed that were never discussed outside the home. This is how we learn how to be in the world, and it's up to us at a certain point to take ownership and responsibility for our lives and decide how we're going to be in the world. I had to do that. It's hard work, but I'm telling you, the payoff is amazing.
Yeah, you got to break the cycle. You got to just get yourself out of the I call it the mainstream loop, where you're told how to look, how to dress, what to eat, what to buy. And it's like, no, they're all lies. It's like your reality is in your head, and
but
only
your
you
journey
can
is not
control
the
it.
same as the guy next door's journey, right? And the thing is, we lose a lot less of our energy and our goodness when we're not focused on the other guy's journey. Like, I focus on what's important to me, and by me being true to myself, hopefully I inspire somebody else to do that. But it doesn't matter to me if they do or don't. I'm at that point now where it's none of my business, actually.
And that's the funny thing. As you get older, things just become less. You get wiser, and things just don't like, I have an opinion. Don't get me wrong. I have an opinion about everything.
I noticed that.
But at the end of the day, I sleep just fine.
Yeah.
I really don't care, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's like, if that person wants, it's like, fine, fill your boots, whatever floats your boat.
The truth of it is, though, wisdom doesn't necessarily come with age, although it's I feel one of the benefits in my experience. Thankfully, I've been around long enough to figure out a bunch of things. But I know people who are half my age who are very wise people who get super wonderful life lessons. And I even know some millennials who are super wise, caring, lovely people who I learn a lot from. So, as you said to me earlier, age is just a mindset. It really is just a number, and it doesn't define anything about my life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, what was I going to say? I was going to say... I forget. Let's move on. Gone. Let's talk a bit about your book, because you talk about the segments. I wrote them down, and maybe we can go over briefly what some of these things
the principles?
are. Yeah, the principles.
Yeah, okay.
What they mean, and where we can go from there. Let's just take a small break, though. Give ourselves a time for a sip of coffee. I'm in the studio with Kathie Donovan. You can check out her website, kathiedonovan.com, and you probably know her as a broadcaster here in Ottawa on CTV Regional Contact, and she's also a public speaker, and she's written a book. It's called A Woman's Guide to Happiness, Inspiration in Action by Kathie Donovan. Stick around. We're going to take a small break and be back in just a few moments.
Follow us on Twitter at CKCU FM for up-to-date information on programming, community events, and more.
I ain't marching anymore.
Hey, Lynn Hansen here. Don't miss Oaks Fest, the first annual Canadian Phil Oaks Festival, featuring free programming all day at Southminster United Church. And in the evening, a Phil Oaks tribute concert at the Gladstone Theatre. That's Saturday, December 19th. For information and concert tickets, go to oaksfest.ca. Sponsored by CKCU and CHUO, bringing the community together.
I ain't marching anymore. I ain't marching anymore.
How about this one?
No, it's too big. I want something small, more discreet.
Okay, how about the rose?
Are you serious? That's so cheesy. My mom has one. I want that one.
Are you sure? A CKCU logo?
Yeah, on my butt.
That's pretty cheeky. Good choice. And that one's free. Go for it.
Are you a devoted fan of CKCU FM? If so, now is your chance to show us your love, or at least how crazy you are. To celebrate our 40th anniversary, the Magic of Pain Tattoo Studio is offering free tattoos of the infamous CKCU FM logo to anyone who wants one. The Magic of Pain Tattoo Studio is located at 646 Somerset Street West. Call them at 613-501-5149 or visit their Facebook page to check out their artwork or make an appointment. You've got the buttons and the stickers. Now go for the ink.
This kind of hurts, but it's definitely worth it.
You're listening to CKCU 93.1 FM in Ottawa.
8:36 here on the Hump Day version of Special Blend. I'm your host, Tick, and joining me in the studio is Kathie Donovan, talking about her book, Inspiration and Action, A Woman's Guide in Happiness. Before the break, we talked about the principles?
Yep.
Principles.
8 principles.
Eight principles. Applies to men and women.
Yep.
Let's just be clear on that, too. Let's start off, I guess. The first chapter or first section is courage.
Well, actually, the first principle is gratitude.
Oh.
So I'll just
you're right, Ashley.
Yeah. So in doing this research over the 21 months that I had this group going, Tick, I'd go in every month with a different idea, and we would talk about this idea for 2 hours, and then we'd go away for the month and practice with this idea and come back and report back on what happened. And by the end of 21 months, I felt I had these 8 concepts that, when practiced together, would really. And my objective was. Remember, I was charged with understanding why it is we're not available to receive what it is we want when we know what we want. So I felt I had these 8 principles that, when practiced, make us more available to receive what we want. And so the idea is, if we remember physics and we remember all matter is energy, our thoughts and feelings are energy, we want to focus our thoughts and feelings on what it is we want and to make ourselves available. So more open-hearted, more open-minded to receiving what it is we say we want. So the first principle is gratitude, because I think so much of what happens, and you were talking about advertising when I was driving, and I was laughing because so much of what makes people tick, what makes people tick is marketing. You know, they feel they don't have enough of everything. There isn't enough, I'm not enough, la, la, la. It's like, dude, come on, you're perfect the way you are. When you start to acknowledge what you're grateful for, and I mean really acknowledge what you're grateful for, and you start with your breath. As long as we have breath, that to me begins a long list of things to be grateful for. I have friends who didn't make it past 50. Mm-hmm. So I'm very grateful for my breath. And I'm not being cheesy at all. I think what that does is it opens me up to feeling more, just wonderful about being alive. So breath, I can hear, I got hair, I can walk, la, 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 and so on. People who can't walk, if they can roll in a chair, if you've got some kind of hearing support, if you can't hear properly, etc. If you have family, if you have one person, if you got somebody who smiled at you, if the Starbucks person gave you something, just endless. Go ahead.
As far as gratitude,
yes.
Is this, I got to ask, is this just a conscious thing that you think in your mind, or is it a spiritual thing?
Well,
is it a bit of both?
All of this is spiritual. And when I say spiritual, I mean non-material. Non-material. Spiritual to me just simply means non-material.
We're not talking
it doesn't
religion.
matter what you believe in. No, I'm not an organized religion person at all. I was raised Catholic, however.
Yeah, I'm a recovering Catholic.
And I now choose to recognize there is a power greater than me. I don't call it what I called it when I was a Catholic because it kind of creeps me out. But, I believe in a power greater than myself. And I believe that with this law of attraction, I'm constantly co-creating my future.
Okay.
That's with my thoughts and my feelings.
And one other thing,